Like Sheila, what am I supposed to talk? Sheila, what am I supposed to talk about?
Passion.
Close the window, sorry.
Oh. The topic today is how to cultivate wise compassion.
Who?
How to cultivate wise compassion.
Wise compassion. All right.
Yeah.
That's better. Now we can hear. Much nicer. Wow. Okay. So we just motivate, think. Lamas would say, let's set our motivation. We might say, state our purpose, our goal, why we're here. Maybe we think we're here to listen, and that includes me. Think about, analyze, contemplate these thoughts from the Buddha via the Tibetans about happiness, about suffering, about the mind, about life. So that we can develop, so we can develop what for the Buddha is in our incredible potential. Buddha is very big on potential, but it's amazing potential as far as he's concerned. So we can develop that for our sake and the sake of others. We live in this crazy world together. Let's listen to these words, these teachings, okay? Sangye Chadang Soke Chonam La, Jantu Baru Dagni Kyapsu Chi, Dagi Chernyan Gipe Sonam Ki, Drola Penche, Sangye Dropa Shog, Sangye Chadang Soke Chonam La, Jantu Baru Dagni Kyapsu Chi, Dagi Chernyan Gipe Sonam Ki, Drola Penche, Sangye Dropa Shog, Sangye, there it is up there. Sangye Chadang Soke Chonam La, Jantu Baru Dagni Kyapsu Chi, Dagi Chernyan Gipe Sonam Ki, Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Shog. Okay. All right. Well, I think in our culture, in modern culture, people, I think, enter into a spiritual path mostly because it's about love and compassion, you know. We love that, you know, love and compassion. What's interesting from the Buddhist perspective, this is advanced. You want junior school, high school, university, it's university level, which is a big surprise to us. And when they, in the first stages, I think what they call the wisdom wing, which seems puzzling to us. So basically the Buddhist teachings, he's saying that the Buddhist path is all about developing our potential, which means removing the neuroses from the mind, which are the cause of our suffering, and developing the virtues in our mind, which are the cause of our happiness. It's a very simple way of putting it like that. So the way he describes our suffering, why we suffer, is because in the mind, we have these neurotic, I-based, fear-based neurotic states of mind that cause us enormous suffering. But the crucial point here is in relation to compassion, which cut us off from others. They cut us off from others. So the main way we suffer is this sense of isolated, bereft, lonely, sad, angry, jealous, depressed, miserable, self-pity me, as Lama-Yeshe would call ego, separate from others. We know that feeling. Whether you're angry, depressed, it's this feeling of separate from others. So either the outside world is ugly and revolting, or it makes us afraid, or just boring, you know. But there's this disconnect. That's really the best way to say the function of all the neuroses in our mind from Buddha's perspective. You know, and he says that they can be removed. And so why that's called the wisdom wing, the wisdom work, is a curious concept, is because on the one hand, these unhappy states of mind, like attachment, anger, jealousy, low self-esteem, all this nonsense, which we think is so natural, but which for the Buddha is a load of rubbish and completely can be removed. As we start to work on that, it has two functions. One is it loosens us up, makes us more fulfilled, more content, more courageous, more happy, but also it breaks down these barriers between self and other. So we get clearer and more connected, but clearer about others. So seeing right now being caught up in all the misery, as Lama puts it, when the anger, the jealousy, the depression, when they're prevailing, then what these states of mind cause is that the outside world appears back to us. It sounds curious. It appears back to us mistakenly. But it's sort of obvious if you think about it. When there's a lot of anger in your mind, the whole world looks ugly, doesn't it? Ugly, horrible, mean, nasty. Whether it's a person or a country or a politician or an event, it appears ugly. When attachment is in the mind, it looks all divine and delicious, and we hunger after it, you know, yearn for it, hanker after it. So, all these neuroses in the mind cause the outside world to, as Lama Yoshi puts it, to appear wrongly in the mirror of our mind. They say that the mind's like a mirror, and this is very profound, actually, if you think about it. And the outside world, it's like is a reflection of what's in the mirror. So if your mirror is full of ugly, full of anger, everything appears ugly. If your mirror is full of attachment and neediness, it appears kind of all delicious and hanker after it, you know. If you're depressed, it appears boring and grey and hopeless. We know this, but we don't think of it like this. So in relation to sentient beings, there's anger, they appear horrible and you want to harm them. I mean, look at the world. Why do you think people kill, steal, lie, rape, murder, terrorize each other? Because of anger. What else? Hardly rocket science. But to look at what you have to look back at what their mother did to them to decide why they're angry. It's just their tendency, you know, their mind. So when the anger is very strong, not only do things appear ugly, well, you want to harm, you know, it's heavy duty. When you're when they're full of attachment, people, they're like objects to be eaten up and ingested, you know. So as we lessen the neuroses, we become more fulfilled, less angry, less neurotic, less attached, and therefore more connected to others. That means we see them more clearly. Then we can begin to have serious compassion. So right now, the compassion we do have it, there's no question. And this is not the normal analysis, but this is the Buddhist analysis, and I think we'll recognize it. Right now, we have lots of compassion, no doubt. Empathy, kindness, love for others, compassion, we see the suffering, you know, but usually it's the compassion we have is really limited. Usually, not being too sarcastic, we have compassion for a few animals and a few children. In other words, you've got to be an innocent victim to deserve our compassion. Have a look at the world. They've got to deserve our compassion. It's a big word in our culture, deserve, you know. It's quite heavy. So you do have compassion, but usually only for our people, our friends, our beloveds, but for a few animals and other people as well. But they've got to be innocent. So it's a very limited, our compassion is extremely limited right now to spontaneously be. Why? Is because it's polluted by our attachment and our anger. We don't see it like that, you know. And our compassion is so limited now also because, and this is really a tough one, but this is such a good analysis if we can see it. It's a real revelation. So, for example, we look in the world and we see suffering. And we do. I mean, when we look at it, open our eyes, you're going to see suffering because it's bombarded from all the media. And we have so much more media now than even 10 years ago, you know. Multitudes of so much just bombarding us, the intensity of the suffering of the world. So what happens is, so if we do this analysis of the mind, the way the Buddha describes, which is pretty unique to the Buddha, but I think we can see the logic of it. You've got the neurotic, I-based, fear-based, limited, constricted, narrow, separating states of mind, ones that make us miserable, and therefore misrepresent the world, and therefore cause us to harm others. And then we have the positive states of mind, our saving grace, I like to say. Love, compassion, kindness, perseverance, courage, confidence, all of these qualities. But at the moment, our virtues, our goodness, they're there, but they're limited and even dragged down by the neuroses. So there you are, you look at the world and you have compassion and you see the suffering and it's unbearable. You see it, but depending on the intensity of your own attachment and your anger, that will completely pollute your compassion. So if you're if your aversion goes inwards and you have more of a depressed tendency, when you see the suffering, compassion will come, and compassion is a virtue. It's powerful. It's this approach that goes, oh my God, look at that suffering. This is terrible. I wish they didn't suffer. That's compassion. But it's polluted by your attachment. So the only way to understand that is by understanding attachment. And that comes first, well before you get compassion, which is the first stages of practice. So attachment you know, as I always talk, is multifaceted. It's very primordial, very deeply ingrained, goes to incredibly subtle levels. And really, we only see it at a very gross level, you know. Oh, I'm so attached to food, I'm so attached to sex, I'm so attached to whatever, very gross level. But it's got incredibly subtle levels. And one of the functions of attachment, one of the main functions of attachment is like this emotional hunger. And it's a junkie. And what's the best way to put it? It's a junkie, or like a fragile child within us, like a junkie within us that, okay, a fragile child that only can cope with everything being lovely. It desperately only wants everything to be nice. And what, of course, means my nice, not your nice, my nice. So it's very fragile. And that's why when you see suffering, your compassion reaches out, but your attachment is having a panic attack. And you have anxiety or you have anger. You either want to go, you know, go out there and demonstrate and kill all the people, or you get depressed and overwhelmed and anxiety because you can't bear to look. If we can see this in our mind, it's a revelation, I tell you. And this is why we suffer. You cannot suffer because of a compassion. This is a big shock to us. We don't do this kind of analysis, you know. The attachment in us is this junkie that only wants everything to be nice. So, of course, the moment it doesn't get the nice, that's immediately what gives rise to aversion. We run between attachment and aversion like 1,000 times a day. And depending on your personality, the aversion can be volatile and angry. So you'd be one of those political activists like I was. You go out and shoot and kill and lie and steal. Well, I didn't do any of those, but shout and yell, you know. But if you're a depressed mentality, you just look at it and go, I can't cope, go away. I remember a friend of mine, it was really helpful, a friend of mine who doesn't have a volatile personality, like let's say me, but she, like everybody, has attachment and aversion. This is the Buddha's analysis. We have attachment and aversion, and we run between these 1,000, 10,000 times a day, but they're very subtle, and we just we don't name it like this in our psychology, you know, but we analyze it this way, you'll see it. So attachment's always there, hungrily wanting everything to be nice. We don't say it like that, but look at it, you know. In other words, as soon as you stub your toe even, or as soon as, I was the simplest examples, as soon as you hear hubby slurping his coffee, what do you think arises in your mind? It's called aversion. Could be extreme anger, or could it be irritated, upset, annoyed, frustrated. Polite words for anger. Because attachment just didn't get what it wanted. So this is what, when we really see it this way, it's a revelation. It can help us see our minds, I tell you. Attachment is, it's fragile. It's hungry, it's emotional hunger, it's needy. And depending on how strong it is in you, and depending on how you manifest it, it could be the most obvious level, like for sex and drugs and rock and roll and video games or money or whatever, or it can be more subtle, just for nice feelings, you know. And that's why we go up and down 1,000 times. That's why we have depression. That's why we have anxiety. I'm really meaning it, but we don't catch it until it's strong. That's our problem. So this friend of mine, she was into the environment. I mean, these days it's the environment. I remember 30 years ago, 40, 20 years, 30, 50 years ago, whatever it was when I was younger, it was something else. It was something else, you know. There's always something, isn't there, in the world? But these days it's environment. So she's very fragile, very, very soft personality, but like all of us has attachment and aversion. But the way her aversion manifested was as absolute panic and anxiety. So she couldn't even drive in the car with her husband. She had to have her eyes closed because as soon as she'd see the trees, she'd have this panic attack about the whole environment collapsing, you know. Her mind would go out of control. But she didn't punch and shout and yell. It went internally and she'd have anxiety, panic attacks. That's what people who don't shout and yell do instead of shouting and yelling. It becomes a panic attack. Do you understand me? Anxiety, that's what it is. It's milder, but it's exactly the same. The dynamic between attachment and aversion is, you know, of anger is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. So someone like me is very volatile. When I was younger, had no control at all over my mind. A little bit better now, hopefully. Back then, the moment my attachment didn't get what it wanted, I also had a panic attack, but it's called anger. You think about this, I find this very fascinating. If you saw a person in full-blown panic attack, anxiety mode, right? You'd think, oh, the poor thing, she's having a panic attack, right? But if you saw me angry, you say, oh, she's angry. But actually, I'm having a panic attack. Are you communicating with me, people? Anger is a panic attack. except you turn it onto others. That's all. That's all it is. You smash and kick, But it's exactly the same. You look at, if you didn't hear what the person's saying, and you saw their body language, shouting, yelling, eyes wide, tears coming out, spit coming out their mouth, you'd really feel sorry for them. But they might be saying, I want to kill you, But it's because it's anger, we don't call it anxiety. What do you think it is? It's so evident if you think about it, We have compassion for anxiety people, but not for angry people. Because they want to harm others as well, that's the trouble. But so really what I'm getting at is this attachment and aversion, they're constant between one and the other. We're continually going between these. And really what practice is learning to navigate these and have less emotional hunger and less panic when it doesn't get what it wants. That's the sign of progress. I promise you. It takes hard work. So what I'm getting at here, particularly in relation to compassion. So my friend, she just couldn't even, she had to close her eyes because she could not cope even looking at the trees. Her mind went out of control, But what happened for me, when I was a political activist, I'd go out of control too, but I'd go out and demonstrate and shout and yell and punch and kick. Well, I didn't always. I mean, I didn't punch and kick, shouted and yelled. And I got punched and kicked actually when I got arrested one time in 1971. It was during that time of the Irish. We called it the Bloody Sunday, and 13 people got killed by the British police in Ireland. It was a huge demonstration in London. I remember I was in London. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm just going to gossip. Don't worry about it. Anyway, yeah, so we're understanding the attachment and aversion. It's one of Buddha's first teachings, and it sounds so boring. But I tell you, every time you think about it, it gets deeper and deeper and more nuanced, our understanding of our minds, So what I'm getting at here is how that attachment and aversion pollute our compassion. So when we see terrible suffering and we are overwhelmed by it, either deeply depressed or outrageously angry, we think we are suffering or we think we're angry because we have compassion. No, this is the point. We are suffering because we have attachment and aversion, particularly because we have attachment, because attachment can't stand problems. It's as simple as that. Attachment can't stand problems. Attachment can't stand seeing ugly things. It can only cope with everything being nice. It's the best way to put it, I tell you. But it takes a long time to see it, because even in modern psychology, they say we have like 1,000 thoughts a second. So it's hard to catch, And our trouble in our culture, unless we start practicing, we don't even notice what's happening in our mind until we're shaking, until we're having the panic attack, or until we want to kill the husband. Too late, So so in the first stages of practice, you're controlling your body, your speech, and your mind. You're living in discipline, you live in vows, you have lots of practice, you control your body, you control your speech, and then you can begin to harness the crazy mind. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Then we're able now to look into the crazy world and not lose the plot completely. And that's just to have compassion, first of all, just for the first group of people, which is the people, the first level of Buddha talks about 3 kinds of suffering. The very first of his noble truths, there is suffering. And there are 3 kinds of suffering. So we only even recognize the first one, which is what they call the suffering of suffering, which is when the bad things happen, which is basically when attachment doesn't get what it wants. That's the only suffering we recognize, which is the bad things, the environment, wars, poverty, sickness, That's the only, first of all, we have a limited compassion for limited people, innocent victims, and then we only have compassion for those for whom the bad things are happening. But these other levels of compassion, it takes a while to think about it. Buddha's view, 2 other subtler levels of compassion, of suffering, therefore compassion, because compassion is the thought, starting with the thought, may you not suffer. Compassion is in relation to suffering. Love is, may you be happy. Love is related to happiness. May you be happy. May you not suffer. These are fundamental, and they cover all the positive qualities or underneath love and compassion. Love is, may you be happy. Compassion is, may you not suffer. So, His Holiness says, compassion, I mean, you can say it's the point of the path. But as he says, compassion is not enough. You need wisdom. And wisdom, as I said before, I'm implying, is what you get when you do the first stages of practice. Learn to know you control your own body and speech. Learn to know your mind well. Learn to see the attachment and lessen it, harness it. Learn to see the aversion and the panic and the anxiety, and learn to harness that. And this is not easy, but that's the practice. So better and better at that, then you open your eyes and you see the suffering, and now you can have you won't lose the plot so much. You'll have empathy and compassion, and then you'll be able to even say, what can I do to help? Always remember Martin Luther King would say, it's good to be angry. He meant it's good to find fault. Look at the world, look at the injustice, look at the racism, look at the poverty. But then he's implying, don't just have a panic attack and shout and yell. Then you say, what can I do to help? That's what they call great compassion. Mahakaruna, great compassion. That's the brave attitude of the Bodhisattva. Not only, oh my God, look at the suffering, but what can I do to help? That's tremendous. So the other component here is also, which is, totally unique to the Buddhist view, is the view of karma. And many Buddhists don't particularly like this view. Certainly in the Tibetan tradition, you're going to hear it all the time, because it's the fundamental view of the Buddha. It's his starting point, his philosophical view of the universe, what the world is, what minds are, what happiness is, what suffering is, and where we all come from. That's completely the view of karma. So you can't really understand Buddhist teachings unless you understand karma. And many Buddhists have no interest, think it's kind of boring. So here, bringing karma in, the Buddha's view is there are trillions of sentient beings, trillions of minds that are shockingly for us, but that's the Buddha's view. They are beginningless and endless. Don't need creating. Complete misconception for the Buddha, this idea of a creator. We either think our mummy and daddy made us, or we think God made us. There's two options, isn't it? Neither for the Buddha. Mother and father give you a body, how kind. They do not give you your mind. And this is why the view of karma is crucial to understand from the Buddhist perspective, because we all tend to think our mind came from our parents, anger and love and kindness and being good at football. Oh, that's because of my mother and my father. No, not at all. It's because of you having practiced them before. This is a massive, important point, actually. So when we understand that point for ourselves, then we'll know why we have certain tendencies and why we do harm to others as well as the good. And this becomes a basis now for even more compassion. Because when you see people murdering, killing and stealing and lying and raping and jumping on little girls, you'll have an understanding of why. Whereas in our world, we have no explanation of why. Not only why I do certain things, but why do other people do so. So we just say it's a big mystery to us, So the view of karma is massive in informing your compassion. Because when you realize yourself, you're driven by your own ridiculous habits. The wisdom is like compassion for yourself. Then you see others harming and you know why, because of their tendencies, driven by the power of the past karma, It's huge. This is a massive point. They said the bodhisattvas have the greatest compassion for us because we don't realize cause and effect, because we don't realize karma. We create ourselves, basically. We bring our own stuff with us. We're not this innocent victim who didn't ask to get born, who's the product of some other handiwork, who's the handiwork of some other person, like a god or parents. No view like that in Buddhism. So this is a massively, radically different point. That if you're interested in the Buddhist view and want to try to understand his view, you've got to factor this in. He's not asking you to believe it, just to factor it in. It's huge. It really gives us a basis for having compassion for others, much bigger compassion, not just for the poor innocent victims, but for everybody. In fact, they said the bodhisattvas have more compassion for the harmer than the harmed. Because the harmed is just finishing their karma, and the harmer is just beginning future suffering. It's a very, very different view, but fits completely with the Buddhist analysis. So if you want to understand it, I'm not saying accept it, but at least understand it, you need to understand this analysis, Because it explains why we have certain tendencies, good or bad. And this is one of the points in our world. One of our major ways of suffering is we don't know why bad things happen to us, and we don't know why people do bad things to others. our biggest question is, why is this happening? Why did that happen to him? Why did she do that? It's one of our biggest, most painful questions, and we have no answer to it from the materialist philosophical view of the world. I'm not sure what the Christian teaching is, or the Muslim one, I don't know. The Buddhist one's very clear. So when how does this so-called wisdom inform your compassion? Well, it's kind of, I find this interesting example. I think a simple example I use from my own mind. So what Buddhism means by wisdom, at the simplest level, is understanding karma and taking the view that there are countless consciousnesses, countless minds, each coming into this life program with their own tendencies, each coming into this life program with their own experiences, and therefore whatever happens to them, what they think and do and say and what happens to them are the fruit of their past actions, good or bad. This is a hugely important point to understand, even theoretically, in Buddhism. As I said, most Buddhists don't even like it, don't even think about it. I think it's relevant, you know. So when we have that view, we're going to understand ourselves better, then we'll have more tolerance and kindness to ourselves rather than just beating ourselves up and having guilt. We'll know that we brought our tendencies with us, so we want to, and they're not set in stone, so we can change them. So this whole first stages of practice, abiding by the laws of karma, understanding karma, purifying karma, working on your mind, your body, your speech. This is really like, we'd call it the path of self-compassion. This is how you put yourself together. It's how you help yourself. So as I said before, one of the consequences of this practice is you become more steady, more capable, more reasonable, more content, more fulfilled, and therefore more clear, less neurotic. Therefore, more capable of seeing others and realizing we're all in the same boat. Everybody's driven by their own past. Everybody's asking, why do bad things happen to me? It's not fair, I don't deserve it. Everybody's greedily accepting the good things because that's all I do deserve, but we don't know why. We just follow this instinctive ego. So we're able to have such compassion for people. This is a hugely different point. In the normal world, it's impossible to know why on earth would I have compassion for a pedophile. You can't even think about it. That'd be ridiculous, you know. But I like to say the example, I think the only person who has compassion for a pedophile is his mum. Because you know why? Because she can see he's harming himself. That's the point. So when we can see in the earlier stages that my attachment, my anger, my depression, my jealousy, my low self-esteem are what harm me, and therefore cause me to do dumb things, now I can understand others for the same reasoning. And this is our trouble in the West. The commonest thing people say in the West is, I can have compassion for others, but not for myself, because you haven't done the wisdom work. You've leapt over. You have this sentimental compassion for a few innocent victims, you know. That's too unstable. It's too unstable. Are we communicating here? Okay, good. Any questions? Any questions, anybody? Any questions here? Yes.
Thank you, Robina.
Okay, darling, go on, talk to me.
So in my own practice, I work with people who suffer.
What kind of people do you work with? Yeah, grab it. Yeah, what kind of people do you work with?
Well, I do coaching. So all sorts
Coaching.
of coaching. So all sorts of people doing well, but they like to.
Human beings, we all
Human
need
beings,
coaching
yeah.
and helping. Yeah,
Yeah.
go on.
And I really like the work. I noticed with myself maybe the last year or two. You get tired. Like there's sort of a energy loss in the.
Oh, you feel that, do you?
I do, and even you
Yeah.
know, as I'm with you now, I feel a lot of heartbreak.
Mm.
And then I'm like, I know there's joy to find.
This is what?
Joy, like joy that, you know, the joy of being able to do something, the joy of
Helping somebody.
the joy of helping
Okay, so
somebody.
why, so this is getting to the exact point about why you're not saying anxiety or anger, but you're saying, you know, loss of energy or something. That's, so this analysis here, can you hear the analysis? It's because of your attachment.
Right.
I mean, we've got to really understand this attachment is so profound, it's primordial. It's not just, oh, you know, attachment to cakes. you don't even really get rid of it by the time you've kind of realized emptiness. It's incredibly primordial. It's incredibly subtle. So when we factor that in, until we're a highly realized bodhisattva, we're going to have it. Then we've got to, and then we've got to know that's why. Because attachment, can you see that? Do you hear that analysis? Because attachment wants everything to be nice. So there's this part of you, the unhappy part of you. There's your good part. Amazing. You're able to use it to help others. Incredible. Compassion, empathy, and all that. But this other part is this part that's still there. Depends on the degree that is actually being hard. Is causing the compassion to be limited and causing you to be distressed. Because attachment would rather have it all to be lovely. Do you understand? This is why when I remember thinking about the pandemic and hearing about people, the medical workers in hospitals killing themselves because it was so unbearable. This sounds so brutal to say it's because of their attachment, but this is the analysis, Do you understand? So when you hear, and especially when you hear when you can hear the example of, say, these bodhisattvas who've gone beyond the attachment, they're the examples. Then you go, wow, that's possible. Then it's possible. So we have to just persevere, and therefore know where you're at, and then adjust accordingly. Have a good sleep, have a week, come up back the next day. Isn't it? Be wise, isn't it? That's it. You're learning that, how to understand it, and then just take care of yourself, or not get. But don't say losing. I think don't say. I'm not sure it's that. Lose. I don't know about that. So you find it hard to let it go, is what you're saying. I mean, that's what people say.
I think what's happened, at least in my path, is I have these rare glimpses of joy, like a real joy.
I know, but you explain that to me. I
But
don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean by that?
Well, I guess sometimes I wake up and I can feel the sun and it's just great. And from the first moment I wake up, I sort of feel energized. I feel like I'm sort of with an energy that's carrying me. And that's really.
Well, I mean, all these words, I
really,
find it hard to understand them. I'm hearing you, but I mean, you have to. Okay, go on. So
But-
the sun shines on your body, and that's okay. That's a nice feeling of the sun shining. That's
Yeah,
good. So don't make
yeah.
it more than that. So go on.
Yeah,
Other days it'll be raining.
most days it's raining. Yeah.
Okay,
Like, how
so
do I
go
get,
because attachment isn't getting what it wants. Attachment only. So listen, this is where the analysis. If you're really studying all the Buddha's teachings, which we don't, most of us don't do, and we need to do more. When we understand there's attachment, which is emotional hunger. Then you have aversion, which is panic, go away. Then you have another state of mind in here. We should just mention the word joy or happiness or pleasant feeling. These are working constantly, and they're neither negative nor positive. They're just natural components of any mind. At any given moment, any millisecond of any given moment of any mind, there's either a pleasant or an unpleasant feeling. Literally as simple as that. And so normally we rely upon the sun shining on our body to have the pleasant feeling. Do you understand me? And then when we stub the toe, we have the unpleasant feeling. So what happens is, as soon as the sun shines on the body, the pleasant feeling arrives, and the next millisecond attachment grasps at it. Or if you stub your toe, which is an unpleasant feeling, next second angry. They're the problems. They're the problems. So we want to. Buddha says everybody wants to be happy and no one wants to suffer. And he says, mate, I found a method. Get rid of attachment and aversion, and you'll have it all the time. But it'll be just like constant. So we have to struggle, but what we confuse is the attachment. So as soon as the sun shines, or as soon as the pleasant moment happens, or as soon as the person really shows progress, attachment gets excited, and pleasant feeling comes. But it doesn't last, because the next minute someone's going to punch you in the nose. So we've got to distinguish pleasant and unpleasant feelings, which are every millisecond, and then learn and then learn to rely less on the sensory experiences to trigger them, which is how we are now. Do you understand me? Because the body is so powerful for us. It's a dominating thing. It's the second we wake up in the morning, our bodily experiences dominate our lives. So if it's going to be an ugly feeling, stubbing your toe, rain, dripping, coffee, ugly, you'll be depressed in 5 minutes. But so we have to learn not to rely on the sensory experiences and develop the happiness in the mental consciousness. That's really constant. That's very strong practice. Do you understand me?
I do, yeah.
So that means when you're facing dramatic people and difficult people and suffering one after the other or whatever, you see it. But if you have the view of karma, I don't know if you do, then you know why they're like this. You give them what you can. But the other thing is too, what we tend to do when we're helping people, whether it's your mum, your neurotic mum who's never satisfied, you understand, or just a passing person or one of your people you're coaching, we judge our success according to whether or not they're happy. And that's a big mistake as well. That's a total mistake. That's again, attachment being hungry to get the nice response. Whereas you can only do as much as you can do. Your neurotic mum might be a bottomless pit of misery, and no matter how, you can even feed her your blood daily. You can sleep in a bed 24 hours a day. She still won't be happy. But we judge we judge our success based on that, and that's the biggest mistake. So I work with people for years, 15 years in prison. I mean, me working with people in prison, 15 years, now still a few people. And I learned that I can't get them out of prison. I can give them a talk, they can get excited, and then I walk out the door, they're back in the shitty misery. You know, I can't make that different. So I give them what I can, and then out of respect, you give a person what they can, the tool, and your mum, and it's up to her to use it. If she can't, you love her who she is. So that when we can do this, we stay much more stable. We give what we can, but don't judge our success by their response. Because that's attachment getting all the strokes, you know. Do you understand me? I have to distinguish these things. Do you hear what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
But the joy, you said when you say moments of joy, you mean sensory consciousness,
Well,
or
no.
joy at someone being happy, or what do you mean?
No, I mean, I'll tell you what I'm taking away from this, and you can see if I'm understanding you.
Mhm.
There's, you know, Zopa or other great teachers, when you experience them, you can see how much joy they have,
Yeah.
unconditioned joy.
Unconditioned, because they've given up attachment and aversion.
Exactly,
You know
and
that.
that's what I'm realizing.
They're
that,
able
you
to
know,
have constant
I can
happiness.
touch that joy sometimes, but I have to stop saying, oh, that's because such and such is the case. That joy is for, you know, that joy is that natural thing that happens after you let go of attachment.
Well, technically, yeah, but technically to a moment of happiness, a moment of joy, what do you want to call it? A moment is the fruit of a past virtue. Could be 32 lives ago. It just popped up and it grew as a little moment of happiness. So we nourish that capacity for happiness right now by, yes, nourishing those virtuous seeds, but also by practicing, yeah, like I said before, practice. But then the thing is, yeah, I mean, so they come and they don't come. That's okay. Keep practicing, isn't it? Not hanker after, I'm not saying you are. But I remember one person, I remember this man who had been meditating for 22 years, something, and he was in tears practically. And he said he's sort of waiting, he's waiting for 22 years for the experience of liberation. I thought, well, I mean, the poor man's going to be out of his brain, you know. He's craving for the happiness to come, you know, feeling so distressed. This is terrible. Anyway, just keep moving, isn't it? But this is where I find the Buddhist one is such a clear analysis. We have to study it to hear that. Like the feeling. There's three states and three categories of states of mind in Buddhism: the neurotic, deluded, ridiculous ones, which are rubbish and can be removed; the positive, virtuous, useful ones; and then the third lot are neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. They call them neutral, which makes it sound very depressing, but I prefer to call them the mechanics of our mind, and that includes in concentration, good memory, discrimination, and the one called feeling. And there's either unhappy, happy, or neutral feeling, but they're neither virtuous nor they're not the same character as anger or attachment. They're quite different. And Buddha's methodology is how to get more of the happy ones. And eventually, as you've got rid of delusions, you are only happy. It can't not be. You can't not be happy. And that's weird because we think the world's full of suffering. How can you be happy? Well, the mind can't not be happy if you've gone beyond attachment and aversion. Now, that again is not how our analysis puts it. And there's infinite compassion, tears pouring, but still not, the mind is not disturbed. That's what's very hard for us to hear. Do you understand? But to know that's possible is encouraging. What else, people? Something else? Yes, sweetheart. Hello there. Get the microphone, yeah, so these people can hear you.
Okay,
Go, darling.
I'm listening to what you just shared.
Yeah.
This practice is new to me.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing is that the aversion and the attachment to the bodily sensations.
For example, yeah.
For example,
Yeah.
my curiosity is when you pay attention, when you become aware of those sensations
Yes.
that are happening.
Yes.
My question, you once said about deconstructing,
Yeah.
and I'm curious how does one do that? And,
I understand. Okay. Okay, I understand.
like, you feel
I understand.
Yeah.
So first of all, I think the biggest one is to make even this distinction between, in the Buddhist analysis, we've got consciousness in general. Mind, consciousness are synonyms. And then it functions in two ways: sensory and mental. And this already is a tremendously powerful thing to start to look at, you know? So the always example I use, always the same example, but it's a lead into it. Okay, first of all, as Lama Yeshe puts it, we make the body the boss, because and even in our culture, we don't distinguish. We are only the body, you know. We don't even distinguish something more subtle, like a subtler level of consciousness. We don't even posit that as existing. I remember one time in this book, when I was editing Lama Zopa's book about death and how to help at the time of death, and I read this book by an American medical journalist called Nick Teresi called The Undead, and it was all these complications and obstacles and difficulties now in the industry where you take organs and, you know, give them to living people. That all these obstacles are happening. People are coming back to life, people are having out-of-body experiences, and they're really confused about when death is now. So I remember this one doctor in that business, he said, I can now say with certainty that consciousness is not a function of the brain. I don't know what it is, but I can say that much. So what I'm getting at is it's good that we're questioning all these things, that there's something more subtle in the body, right? So that's consciousness. So, okay, so we've got grosser level of consciousness, which is sensory. And then we have the more subtle necessarily, which is mental. So the example I always use, you know, I say to you, I see a very pretty cup, and I always like this cup. I see this cup often and I like the design. So I'll say to you, I see a pretty cup. So now we obviously think my eyeballs are seeing a pretty cup. We don't ever analyze it. But there's two things happening here. Eye consciousness, for a start, isn't the eyeball. Consciousness, by definition, for the Buddhists is not physical, but it's a part of your mind that functions through the medium of the eyeball and all the bits and pieces working, and there will be a cognition. But the cognition, the body, but the five sensory consciousnesses are actually profoundly limited in their capacity for cognition. Eye consciousness can only cognize two things: shape and color. Ear consciousness can only cognize sound. And then, so you've got to ask the question, which part of my mind is cognizing a pretty cup? So that's your mental consciousness. And as Lama Zopa says, that's where the workshop is. So what happens, and I mean it, quicker than Google, the millisecond my eye consciousness lands here, my mental consciousness is accessed, and that's where all my thoughts, feelings, emotions, unconscious, subconscious, opinions, viewpoints, all of that is there, the workshop. And so out of that up will come a series of opinions out of my mouth. There is a pretty cup. But that's nothing to do with shape and color. It's because I've programmed my mind through this life, not to mention last, to have opinions about this and that. It's red, it's this, that one, the style, the shape, all that's and that is conceptual. So because mental consciousness has two levels, grosser level, and we only live at the grosser level, which is conceptuality, including all the emotions, and then we have a more subtle level that we would never touch until we get shamatha, you know, until we get single point of concentration. So we live at the grossest level, and it's all conceptual. So basically, the second we wake up in the morning, open our eyes, open our senses, we're going to be bombarded with the five sense object, which is called the external world. And what do? From that second forward, we are having opinions about it. This is good, this is bad, this is ugly, this is fat, this is thin, this is this. Endless opinions all day, but this is the main tragedy. We don't think they're opinions, we think they're objective facts. Objective facts. That is a pretty cup. You dare argue with me, we'll have a war, you know? So that's how we live our lives, and we don't even pay attention and distinguish between, for example, sensory. So right there, the stubbing of the toe, that is a sensory experience of pain, fact. But the next billionth of a second, how dare that happen to me? Angry. Robina, why are you angry? Well, of course I'm angry, I stubbed my toe. No, that's another opinion. It's an opinion because attachment doesn't want pain. And that's a whole different discussion. So even that, distinguishing between the sensory experience of pain and my mental opinion of anger, which is a response when attachment doesn't get it because it doesn't want pain. That's a whole news. That's deconstructing. You see my point?
Yeah.
You're analyzing. So when you first, but the basis is sensory and mental. That two alone are so huge to distinguish between them. But we, and this is the other thing. Okay, let's just use the example of like, say, chocolate cake. Simple example of an object of attachment. So there's so many things going on. It's incredible. So first you've got the negative states of mind, the neurotic. Main one is attachment, the emotional hunger. It feels like I'm missing something, therefore hankers after, thinks about cake, gets all excited, and then you go to get the cake. So attachment's there, going from dissatisfaction to excited to anticipating. That's all running non-stop on its own trip. But then you've got all the other parts of the mind. You've got your ability to discriminate between chocolate cake and carrot cake. You've got concentration so you don't forget what you're doing halfway to the closet. What was I doing here? Oh, I'm looking for the chocolate cake. You don't go to the toilet looking for the chocolate cake. So all your bits and pieces of your mind, you're in concentration, your good memory, your discrimination, they're all working your way, all supporting attachment to get its cake, right? And then when you get to the cake, attached with this massive expectation now for what? For happy feelings. Happy feelings, which is another thing. So it's dying for the happy feeling. And the cake seems to be the method to get the happy feeling, right? And all this is happening in a billion times a second. Can't even see it. So then you get to the cake, and this is the part that's tragic. The cake goes in the mouth, and pleasant feeling is triggered, just like unpleasant feeling is triggered when you hit the toe. So pleasant feeling is triggered when you get the cake. No question. It is called a pleasant feeling, a moment of happiness, a moment of joy. But what happens is this. At that millisecond, attachment says, not enough, Robina, put another piece in. Because attachment is a bottomless pit that can never be satisfied. So then what happens is you're already after the first mouthful, joy happens, and then disappointment comes. Because attachment is still not happy. So another power, so it's downhill from there. So this is a huge analysis. That's how we get all our pleasure until eventually you're vomiting after 4 pieces. So what happened to the pleasure? So there's a constant deconstructing. But this is using the components of the Buddhist psychological model.
So once you catch yourself.
And that's the part, because it's 1,000 thoughts a second. So all we do is try to catch, as much as we can, and notice. And distinguish between pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, anger, attachment, neediness, concentration, all the bits and pieces all working together. But that takes enormous practice.
And that's what eliminates the suffering over time. Is that what you're
That's
saying?
what?
Eliminates the suffering over time. Doing this hard work, which you're saying, is this what?
Okay. If you completely don't know anything about nutrition, let's say, and you stuff yourself to get happy, I'm talking about nutrition now, not about wisdom. Just nutrition. You have no idea what a carrot does and what a cake does and what shit does. You don't know. So there's no analysis you can do. You just shove it in. But then you start to learn about nutrition. Your experience is completely informed now by intelligence. Yeah. It's exactly the same. That's all I'm talking about. Here it's just the intelligence of what's happening in your mind. Getting some, but yeah, that's it. And this all we can do is start. All we can do is start, There's a multitude of practices. Watch your breath, be quiet, observe, don't have opinion. There's a multitude of approaches we can use, tools we can use. But to really learn to be able to have this level of awareness and change the mind is a very sophisticated level that we can only get when we get some concentration, and only get when we start to really study the Buddhist model, which most of us don't.
So
Does that mean?
So then when you're feeling, say you're feeling anger, you're feeling jealousy, you're feeling competitive, and you stop and you pause.
Okay, so this is a good point, but this is the trouble, the word feeling. This is our problem.
That's
We don't notice we have anger and attachment and jealousy until it's a feeling. This in our culture is the most painful thing. That's why we kill ourselves and others, because we only go to the therapist or only notice it when the body is shaking, and that's completely like. For years, I use the dumbest example. It's like for years, you've been driving your car and you've never heard of mechanics, and you've never heard of noticing the wheels wobbling, and you wait till you're 100 miles an hour and the wheels are falling off. Oh, the wheels are falling off. What will I do, mummy? But you've never heard of mechanics. So I say it, but I mean it. We do not wait till our teeth fall out. We maintain our bodies, our teeth, our gardens, our houses, our hair, our eyes, but we don't, fucking maintain our minds, because we don't pay attention.
So the feeling is the last.
The feeling's too late.
It's too late.
It's too late. Best do damage control. But the whole point, and this is for me, if we can, taking what Buddha's giving us, his expertise, forget getting nirvana, forget bodhicitta, forget bloody high levels of stuff, just using this techniques to learn to develop focus, so you start to catch what the hell your mind is doing a few times a day before it becomes emotional.
Thank you.
Do you understand?
Totally.
And then I would say then we could manage in this life to not lose the plot. We could do this much. It's possible. Do you understand?
Yes.
You understand? So I think just persevere. That's all right. Great. But you have to catch. But the trouble is, the second we stub the toe, it's already too late in a sense. But then you have to catch it afterwards. Okay, because you're not going to kill your toe, but it could be someone else, So, okay, and then do the analysis. And even already we can see too, I think even for people now with pain management, because sometimes the pain that some people live in, I just can't even bear to think about. It's so terrible because you can't change it, you can't make it go away. So you learn to reinterpret it. And that's really what we're doing here. You reinterpret. The second you grab that and you don't give into the anger, you catch it, you notice it, and then you go into the pain. And as soon as you go into it, It dissipates somehow. And anything, the ugly boyfriend, the same thing, the panic attack of seeing this horrible thing he just did. If you look at it, instead of panicking about Mr. Trump doing this or that, you read it carefully. You look into it. You go, oh, that's Mr. Trump. There's lying, there's stealing, there's killing. I recognize that, and you stay steady in the face of it. It becomes less extreme. We have panic attacks all the time, and they vomit out our mouths. You know. Do you understand? Yeah. We communicate with people? Yes. Good. Anybody here? Eileen, come on, you must be dying for a question. What do you got to say?
I think Scarlett was ahead, though. She was first.
Never mind.
Scarlett had, all right, okay. So you had said that a person who inflicts pain on someone else, the harmer, is beginning their karma, and the person who is the recipient of suffering.
Beginning their suffering. It's just like a friend of mine in prison, Andre, who worked with people in prison. I worked with him in North Carolina. And I always tell the story, you've heard me. And his son was murdered in a bar.
Mhm.
And he was asked on the local television in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's on look on the Wi-Fi, you see it in the news. How do you feel about the murderer of your son? And he said, he was in tears, and he said, how could I not have compassion for him? His suffering is just beginning. That's all I mean. But we don't, you got to have a big heart to say that.
Yes.
You understand me?
Yes, I do.
That's all it means. The suffering is just beginning. And not to
Right.
mention this life, but the Buddhist view, of course, is for future life. You know?
Yes.
But we will never have that level of compassion, though, Eileen, until we've got that for ourselves. Until we realize anything that I've ever done to harm others, and we mightn't be rapists or murderers, but anything we've done with our body or speech to harm others is only because we're driven by attachment, anger, fears, jealousy, drama, and anxiety. And when we understand that, we'll have some kind of humility about ourselves, and that's really what compassion for yourself is, in a sensible way. Do you understand me? Then
Yes, I do.
others is a completely different picture. So that's why we always miss out on having compassion for ourselves, because we don't analyze it carefully.
Mhm.
You understand me?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
And that also means that compassion we have now is very sentimental compassion, because the only compassion we have is for innocent victims, and we pat them on the head and say, oh, the poor thing. So we think compassion means this, that it doesn't make sense to have compassion for a pedophile, or pat him on the head, poor thing. No, that boy who killed my friend's son will go to prison. So you don't just, oh, the poor thing can't help it. He got out of control. There are consequences. But you have compassion for that reason, not, oh, the poor thing can't help it, which is sentimental nonsense. So compassion is very powerful, it's imbued with this wisdom that we're talking about, and it's strong and no nonsense. It's like tough love kind of compassion. Do you understand?
Yes.
Someone else? Anything else?
Venerable Scarlett on Zoom has a question.
Hang on, sweetheart, wait. Just a second, darling. Wait a minute, Navita. You talk to me, sweetheart. Yes. Yeah. Hang on, Navita, next, in a second, darling.
Building on these two inquiries, what I'm working with is actually the awareness that comes up. I'm like, when I'm feeling some attachment or a klesha or some kind of grasping.
Yep.
There's actually a lot more and more awareness that's coming up.
Good.
That I've created the causes and conditions for this.
Yeah.
And just basic awareness that
And just what?
and just basic awareness that I wanna just watch this thing.
Right, and what's your next step? That's good. And then after that, eventually, what do you do with it? Or
Well,
what's your next step? Do you
I'm
think?
simultaneously colored by the sensory experience of whatever great, very gross or subtly painful experience, because sometimes it's I guess the primary question is how to work with both the awareness that comes up and the kind of grasping.
So can you need to give me an example of an experience? I mean, if you talk about something as intense as having sex, it's a bit too much. But it was something like having a cake. What are you talking about?
Oh, let's say like I'm in touch with someone, I'm communicating with someone, and I'm wanting them to like communicate back with me in a certain way. and I'm expecting them to send me a message or send an email or a
Well, that's called
correspondence.
attachment, neediness to hear from
Right.
them. So then, go
I'll
on.
experience, I'll not get what I want, attachment doesn't.
Right, you'll
get what I
notice that,
want.
and then
And
what's
I'll
up,
notice it and go,
what's
oh,
up
this-
with your senses though? Senses aren't involved in this at all. What are you talking about? No, your senses are the 5 senses. No. Oh, no.
Yeah, I see.
Now I understand. Wait, this is an important point. Okay. The sensory consciousness is 5. Eye, ear, taste, tongue, and nose. That's it. But the other stuff that you're talking about, this is now the point. This is your mental consciousness, the emotions, but because we notice it when it comes to the surface where it is involved with the body. That's
Right.
not sensory.
Right.
That's your mental. Now, I think it's helpful to hear that the Tibetan medical, which is the Vajrayana or the tantric model, where we've got gross body and gross sensory consciousness.
Yes.
Then we have mental consciousness and the equivalent subtler level of physicality, which is the 72,000 subtle channels coursing through your body, the wind energies coursing through those channels, connected to all the different states of mind. So when the attachment's very strong, the wind energies go berserk.
Yeah,
When the
channel
anger is
flows.
very strong, the wind energies go berserk. So there's physical and mental simultaneously, but that technically is bringing some kind of, if you like, sensory, but not really. It's mental impacting upon the subtler physical energy, which means that, and then we only notice when it gets to the gross level and you're shouting and yelling or shaking or having a panic attack or having joy and crying with laughter or something, you know, because that's driven by the mental. And that's only when we notice what the hell is going on when our body feels it. And that's true when you're feeling depressed. It's so physical, you can't believe it. When you're angry, when you're jealous, or when someone's died, it's like the worst physical pain on the planet. That's the interplay of the wind energies and the mental consciousness.
And before.
And that's not just
that-
bare bones sensory. That's not just bare bones sensory. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, this turned off.
And our trouble is we only notice what we're thinking and feeling when the body feels it. And that's the wheels falling off at 100 miles an hour because we're not paying attention to our mind at the level of thoughts before it becomes emotional. And that's the job to be done. Because we're just so gross with our body. We only notice when it's the body. That's our problem.
Well, isn't there a gap also between sometimes we know it's more subtle before it gets gross anger that we notice a thought that comes up that's.
Well, that's what we have to learn to do, because this is the thing that's so fascinating, the Buddhist psychological model. We've got sensory and we have mental. And then the mental, which is all the thoughts and feelings and emotions, that's got 2 levels as well. And the grosser level, we live at, I began before, we live at the grossest of the grossest level of the mental consciousness, which is conceptuality. So all those emotions and feelings, which we feel in our body, are driven underneath by being conceptual stories that we have practiced and practiced and practiced to the point where they are now instinctive. And when we really get shamatha and go deeper, we can hear these conceptual thoughts, these elaborate scripts that we've been writing in our head for countless fucking lifetimes, you know?
Yeah.
So that really takes a while.
But isn't there a gap between when we
Gap.
have the gap between having that awareness of, oh, these are all my stories. I'm having that experience, let's say this keeps turning on, where I think the battery's low.
Go on, keep going. What?
Where I notice it's my story, I go, oh, it's just my mental it's just my grasping.
Then,
And still having the mixed black and white seeds with a thought that's like, but I still want the cake.
no, but that's because, sweetheart, that's completely natural. It's habit. I mean, you can know intellectually exactly how to hold your racket, your tennis racket, because Roger Federer has told you how, but it's a long time before theory and experience come together.
Right.
That's everything we learn. Cakes, music, or the mind. There's always going to be, it's not a gap, it's just, you've got to first have the theoretical view, then you practice until it's experiential. That's perfectly fine. Start with the theoretical. Nothing wrong. It's perfect. It's not a mistake. It just takes time, that's all. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Exactly, but we've got to only start at the conceptual level. Have to do that one. But really, this is the thing. I mean, as Holiness said, you know, one time about the mind, we can sit with all these thoughts about the mind, or hear the thoughts, blah, 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 know the mind, blah, blah, blah. But to actually have the experience of having a direct cognition of your own mind is super advanced. That's like Mahamudra. It's super advanced because the mind can't be touched or smelt or tasted or seen or heard. So we can, but we've got to start somewhere. Do you understand?
In your experience, how long, I mean, because I'm imagining you've had a long gap of practice, but still having at some point clashes, like.
No, it just, they get less and less and the virtues grow. It's a gradual process. It's like with tennis. You start off having only bad at tennis and gradually it grows. You get better and better. So you just have to keep knowing we're a work in progress and be happy with your progress. We really have to see it that way. Every time you practice virtue, you weaken a delusion. So be happy, keep going, just keep going. And one day in shamatha, the penny will drop and you'll realize emptiness and you'll keep moving. I mean, it's just one step at a time. It's ongoing. Be happy with your progress. Have the humility to learn from it. Own your mistakes because they don't define you, so we can happily own them. In fact, be glad to see our mistakes because now we know the problem. And that's the biggest one because we want to deny the mistakes or we want to get guilty. Oh, I'm bad, you know. But be happy to see the mistake because now you find the problem. And you can't fix the problem if you haven't identified it. Do you understand?
Yes.
To be delighted. Yeah. Yes. Oh, hang on, Navita. Go on, talk, darling. Then you next. Go,
Actually,
Navita.
Scarlett has a question on Zoom.
Okay, who is it?
Hello, Venerable. I'm
Who
just
is this?
Scarlett.
Hi, sweetheart. Talk to me.
I'm just piggybacking on all the other comments you've been talking to the participants about. So I am trying my very best to recognize my attachment, and it's with my neighbor. So I've seen that there's anger that's come up. It hasn't come into my body like you're talking about. How do I transform that awareness that I see? Oh yeah, this is my anger because I'm not getting what I want from
Okay, so
my
you mean your
neighbor.
neighbor is doing things that make you angry. Is that what you're saying?
Well, my neighbor seems to be telling me, I will call you, and she doesn't call me. I will go out for tea with you, and she doesn't do that.
Okay.
And now she's gone on a trip and she texted me, can you look out for my package and collect it for me? And I am
Right.
feeling like you want all this from me and you are not honoring your words.
Okay, I understand exactly.
So I
what
see
do
the anger in me. I don't know how to
so
transform
also,
it.
but see the attachment too. So describe the attachment.
The
Describe
attack,
how it
yeah,
feels. Yeah.
how it feels is I feel unheard, unseen, and rejected by her.
That's right. Exactly correct. It's exactly right. You are correct. So then how do you counteract? How do you feel the pain? That's fine. But how would you argue with it? What analysis would you give it?
So what I was thinking, and I don't know, and I wanted to present this to you, was I am trying, so I understand the non-self aspect of where we're all trying to head.
Understand what, darling? You understand what?
The non-self, like the emptiness
Don't
and
get too complicated. Keep it simple. Don't worry about that. That's a more advanced level. That's fine. How do you, so the name of the attachment you're experiencing is not attachment to cakes. It's not attachment to comfort. It's attachment to being seen and heard and approved of, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what you have to look at. So we've got to argue with that. One of the things we all got it since we're born. That's the deepest attachment of all. So you got to think, well, you know, I wonder, Scarlett, I wonder what it is about me that isn't valid enough until I have this neighbor approve of me. That's rather silly, isn't it? I'm fine as I am. I don't need her approval. I mean, it won't go away overnight, but that's a direct argument with the need to be seen. Her seeing me is not going to, I mean, I don't need to be seen by her. I don't need to be. That's the direct argument with it. It doesn't work immediately, but that's the most direct argument with the need to be seen is, well, I don't need to be seen. I'm fine on my own. I've got to look at, why do I need her approval? Why do I want her to be nice to me? Why do I want to go out with a cup of tea? I mean, that attachment is the problem. So argue with it like that. Do you see my point?
Yes. And I was thinking, do I counter it? I'm trying to suppress this anger. So I'm thinking, well, do I bring her a care package when she arrives back?
No,
Is
no,
that
that's
my
another way
way
you're trying to, no, you're just trying to win her approval still.
Oh, okay.
Suck her. She doesn't want to be your friend, so let her be. Just
Got it.
recognize, don't worry the anger, don't try to win her over. Learn about your own need for this person to be approving of you. You've got to look at that one as painful. And then the anger is the upset that she's not seeing you. So then you've got to deal with what's underneath the anger. Stop trying to win her approval. That's the point. You don't need her approval.
Right.
That's the proper way. It doesn't go overnight, darling, but look at it. It's okay. You're fine on your own. And then if you give, then often what happens when you give up the neediness for another person to like you, suddenly when you don't mind, they're going to be all over you like a rash. And you're communicating, Scarlett.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I have to transform it in that way of
Oh,
giving.
darling, you can't transform it. Listen, that's a bit like saying you found a poison weed in your garden and you've heard that herbalists can turn it into medicine. Honey child, that's advanced. You've got to see the nature of the poison first. Focus on that.
Okay.
Focus on seeing this need we all have to be
Thank you.
approved of by others. Look at it, question it, and argue with it. I'm fine on my own. I don't need to be approved by her. And then the aversion is only the response because the hurt of not being seen. This is the world, Scarlett. Everybody on the planet has this one.
Got it. Thank
Go
you.
one step at a time, darling. And then if she comes home, hi there, how are you, dear? And that's the end of that. So let it go. Come on.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks. Yeah.
And also, what did you do? You did tell her that you'd look out for her cat or a post or something?
Well, I did tell her that I was going to pick up her package, but then I thought I'm not going to knock on her door and wait for her to tell me how her trip was. I was just going to leave it at the door and be done with it. Like, I don't want to, because she has this narcissistic need of wanting to be seen and heard, like myself.
Well, darling, excuse me, that's exactly right. Like you can see in yourself. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But you could also have said, I'll be quite busy. I mightn't have a chance to look out, but if I happen to notice it, I will. So be something like that. And don't be manipulative. Don't play with it. Don't make a big program in your head. And don't sort of just one step at a time, babe.
Thank you.
All right, Scarlett. Thank you. Now go on. Talk to me.
That was a lot of what I was gonna ask.
Oh, there you go.
But
Go on.
it was perfect. One thing I didn't hear was the second kind and third kind of suffering.
Say it again.
You
Oh, I
said
never
that
even
the-
gone into, I
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
go into it. Okay, let's just analyze it. Okay, let's analyze it. Well, that experience of the cake is that suffering.
Okay.
So basically the first kind of suffering, the way they talk it very bluntly, the first kind of suffering, is my way of putting it, is when attachment doesn't get what it wants, which is the bad things, isn't it? Now, the second kind of suffering is when attachment does get what it wants. And it's called the suffering of change. So all the energy to get the cake, the anticipation is so delicious. That's the best part of attachment, I think, is the anticipation. And you get the cake and you're waiting for the fulfillment to come, isn't it? But from that second, it goes downhill because attachment, the expectation is you'll be satisfied. Oh, wow, amazing. And it is going amazing, but the hunger to have more because attachment's not satisfied. And that's the second kind of suffering, because now you keep eating, expecting happiness, but before you know it, you want to vomit. So it's called the suffering of change. The pleasure does come. It is pleasure, but it's limited, it's polluted, it's contaminated, it's needy pleasure, and it turns into aversion. And that's the extra point about, again, the sensory and the mental. The sensory feelings, bare bones, 5 senses, they can't be grown. You can't get more happy, because the more you have the contact with the object, it can only turn into pain. And that's scientific fact. It's horrible to hear it. It's not punitive, it's not religious, it's scientific fact. We all know. My mother used to say to me as a little girl, because I was starting to buy food, and I would hear it. She'd say, Bobsy, the more you get, the more you want. And I would hear it. It was painful, because senses can't be satisfied. That's why we'll go mad. But mental consciousness is where contentment is. So that the scenario would be, you expect the cake, it's exciting, you know it's a nice taste, pleasure does come, but you learn with discipline, there's all other things too, and you only have 1 or 2 pieces, and you will learn to be content, and that's mental. You'll keep the hand in the lap, and the greed is wanting more, because you don't feel happy yet, but you can learn to be mentally happy, and that's where how happiness gets come. You can grow mental, but it's got to be grown. Starting with thoughts. I've had enough. It's very delicious. This is very nice. You practice it conceptually, literally, and that's how you grow happiness. Positive feelings, positive thoughts. Do you understand? We rely, the senses are so dominant, it's unbearable. It's so dominant, we can't even hear the thoughts, So to begin to have that distinction between the sensory and the mental is tremendously powerful. Do you understand?
And then the suffering of change,
Go on, what?
pervasive.
Go.
What's a third suffering?
Well, the third kind of suffering is, they call it all pervasive suffering. And this is implying the entire Buddhist analysis of the universe, which is there are countless sentient beings going from life to life to life. And we're in samsara, quote unquote, solely based upon the fact of having the root delusion, the root primordial misconception of an intrinsic, inherent, definite, solid, pointable me, the main voice of which is attachment, which is then the cause of aversion, the three poisons. So the this primordial continuing to be reborn by this motor called the root delusion. So the first level of suffering, you get rid of it by stopping harming others, and that starts to lessen anger. The second kind of suffering, you lessen that by giving up attachment. And the third kind of suffering, by realizing emptiness, by getting out of samsara altogether. Do you understand? That's the three levels. So suffering of suffering, which is the first level of practice, stop harming others, so you stop that one. Second kind of suffering, you give up attachment, and third kind of suffering, you realize emptiness. Then you're out the hell out of samsara now. Then you add bodhicitta to it, you can come back now because you want to help others. Understand? Okay. That's it. What time is it? 8:45. 8:45. Oh, it's time to go home. No, it's not. Whatever time. When are our classes starting earlier? I've asked for earlier classes. Where's Sheila gone?
Yeah.
When's our next class? We're changing our days, aren't we?
I think June 18th is the next day.
What, is it not a Monday anymore, is it?
No, it's Wednesday.
What?
It's
No, darling, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the evening classes from now on.
Oh,
Better timings. This seems 7:30 so late.
oh, yeah, well, we're not changing that until beginning of the fall.
When's fall?
September.
I'm still, in my head, I still think Australian is fall is,
In
fall is
September-
like, when
in
is fall?
September we
Fall is
switched-
November for us.
Right, so in the fall, we switched to, instead of.
Oh, no,
Monday
sorry, no,
night,
that's summer.
Thursday
Oh,
night.
So what are we saying?
In September, we switched from Monday night, Thursday night at 6:30, so it's early.
That's better, okay, whatever, okay. Okay, so then what else, people, any more things to say about all this talking? But yeah, it's a complicated job, it's a difficult job, but it's a doable job, and it's just, you can't fake it. You understand, you can't fake this job, you can't pretend. I swear, it's real internal, having your hands in your own shit, as my friend would say, but I would say eating your own vomit. That's true. This is eating your own vomit. Not fun, but it's got to be done. Paola, what have you got to say, Petal? Paola gets up, she's up at 3 a.m. in God Almighty, it's Italy. Paola, where are you? Disappeared. Paola, talk to me.
I'm sorry, Venerable
Don't be
Robina.
sorry, it's all right.
It's very helpful for me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, it's very helpful for me what you said, Venerable Robina, about not judging our success on how we make feel
Yes.
others, for example, by,
Yes.
for example, helping them, if I understand what you said.
Yes.
So this is attachment. We should simply accept that someone is not happy, do something for him, and if he is not happy, it's fine, because I don't need to be seen as the good girl. So just accept, when I help someone, just accept that this person is not happy. Although I expect
Paola, is that a question or a statement? There's a question in there.
no, I was just asking if I understood
I will
well.
answer you. I will answer you. Yes. So there's two things going on. One is you practicing kindness and compassion. So that itself is your practice, isn't it? In other words, if you're playing tennis with somebody and they keep hitting terrible balls, that doesn't mean you are bad. You can be improving your tennis every day, even though the person you're playing with is a disaster. It's the same with the person you're helping. So you practicing every day, you practice patience, you practice kindness, then be happy with that for your own sake. And then if the other person is not responding to your kindness and getting happy, then you have compassion for them. It's as simple as that. You have compassion for them. But also you can learn to think, okay, I don't know how to help them right now, but I will continue to work on myself so I can get more wisdom. So you keep learning from it, but learning to be content with your own progress, your own effort, your own kindness. That's why when I think of this, I remember hearing about one nurse during the pandemic who killed herself because she could not face all the sickness and the suffering in the hospital, because she has to have felt that she was a failure because she couldn't save all these lives. But that's so unkind. It's not, when we really see, this is the other point, when we understand karma, Paula, we are all in this thing together, and everybody's got their own story, their own history. Some people, no matter how hard they try, they will continue to suffer. You can only try to do what you can. So we won't take responsibility for it. You know, we won't over exaggerate our responsibility. Even when it comes to, I always use the example of when I had an abortion when I was 23. And I mean, I think of that example because it's like two human beings. This person was they died recently. They had karma with me. I had jumped into bed with a boy. This person came running into my womb and they were a fetus. And then as soon as I realized they were there, I said, I'm going to have an abortion. So I killed them. So women have this terrible suffering guilt. This innocent baby got killed by me. Well, no, that person would not have come to my womb if they didn't have the karma. And I would not have had the thought ever, I will have an abortion, if they didn't have the karma of having killed me. It's very interdependent. We have these interdependent relationships with each other, and we have to learn to take responsibility for our part, and the other person has to be responsible for their part. If we can help them, great. So it's a two-way thing, you know, but we don't think that way. That's why mothers have such guilt when their children turn out bad. Like, I'm a bad mother, you know. But it's not true. The child has their own karma, but we don't have that view in our culture. That's why mothers get so much guilt, so much suffering. But we get so much guilt. We over-exaggeratedly blame ourselves for everything. It's irresponsible. I know my mother, there were 7 kids in our family. We had a pretty traumatic family, but, you know, all families are like that. I love my family, love my mother, love my father, love my crazy sisters. But she would be overwhelmed by depression and despair because she felt she did a bad job. But we're all 9 human beings all doing their bit here. She can't be, it's rude, it's arrogant to think you made all the problems, you know, it's just ridiculous. Do you understand what I'm saying, people? We've got to be much more precise, which doesn't mean you be cruel with the other person. You do what you can. So that fetus came to my womb. They created the cause to be killed by me from having killed me. So of course I have compassion because I killed them. But I don't feel like, oh, an evil person, this poor baby, you know, because the view of karma is nothing we can ever experience didn't come. There's nothing that we experience that didn't come from something we have done. We are all in this together. It's a very powerful view, and it's the basis of compassion. Do you understand, Paolo? So keep learning and keep having wisdom and keep doing what you can, but be happy with your own progress and have compassion for the other person, you know. I mean, especially with our mothers and children, I think with families, it's so difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's so difficult with families. Families and siblings and parents and children, they're locked in this misery of guilt and misery. And I mean, I can't imagine being a mother with crazy kids, you know. The pain of it is unbearable. That alone is unbearable, but knowing it, thinking it's your fault. Oh, it's terrible. And if it is your fault, then take responsibility and change. Do you understand? If you were a naughty mum, then okay, be responsible. Anyway, what else, people? Something more to say? Yes, go.
Hi.
Sweetheart.
As long as you're bringing up parenting.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I tend to.
You're a parent, are you?
I am.
Both of you, how many babies and children have you got? One.
We have one.
Are they an adult now? Probably an adult.
He's way in college.
Oh, she's a college adult.
And
He.
I stress over a lot of.
Why? Over him?
Well, I just have, it's an attachment. I know it, that
Is he, talk about him first. Is he a good boy or is he a neurotic boy?
some age.
Bit of a, that's normal. Join the club.
You know, he's a terrible student.
He's what?
No, he's a terrible student.
Lazy, you mean?
Yeah, well, it's lazy. Now he doesn't know how to be a student.
He's what?
Now he doesn't know how to be a student.
I don't understand what he said.
Right, and he doesn't have the habits built up. He kind of cut his whole junior year in high school, and
He what?
he cut his entire year.
Didn't go to school.
Didn't go to school for an entire year.
pretending to go to school but didn't.
Right.
Right, yeah.
So
But
then-
So, you know, I always took it as, you know, somewhat of a failure on my part, but, you know, just really a lot of worry over him.
So now, where's the status now?
Well, but now he called us on Sunday that, hey, I need help. I have all these bad habits, I'm around all these kids and they're way further advanced than me and I'm totally not prepared for this.
So what's going on with him now? So I keep,
Well, he's coming home, but he's gonna take a class.
so he's given up college, class,
No, he's not
Sorry?
giving it up, he's just gonna come home, he's
and
gonna take a class online and we're gonna get him a special coach to work with him.
how old is he?
19.
So does he want to learn?
He does, he just doesn't know exactly how to get there. Doesn't really.
You mean
know-
he's not very bright?
He's very bright,
But he's very bright.
very
Just
bright,
doesn't like.
So he's lazy. So he's lazy.
yeah, in effect,
He has strong attachment to comfort. He's into drugs or sex or rock and roll or video games or which one?
video games,
So he lives with his, how many hours a day does he do video
I
games?
only 28 hours a day, it seems. like.
28 hours a day.
It's
So
a
there's,
lot.
so he's attached. He's
Yeah.
attached to,
He's
that's
got-
particular way he gets his pleasure.
But-
So go on.
When he called on Sunday, I felt really relieved that he called.
He reached out to you.
He reached
Okay.
out to help.
So what is he reaching? What does he want to do? What does
Well,
he want?
he wants us to get him somebody that can help him learn how to be a better student. And I thought to myself after that, I said, the only reason I'm feeling better is because attachment got what it wants.
That's okay, but it's fine. But you're also pleased for him that hopefully he's showing some sign of.
Yeah,
But it's going to be an uphill battle until he owns responsibility. Does he know his problems?
he does, he knows.
Well, how would he call his problems? What does he say?
He says he doesn't know how to prioritize school, he doesn't know how to get through homework assignments and make sure
Well, because he's following attachment. He doesn't know he's got attachment though. Nobody knows.
Yeah, he doesn't know it in those terms.
No, so how does he call it?
What does he call it?
What does he call being addicted to watching videos all day, video games? What's he call it?
He knows it's a bad habit.
So it's a bad habit.
That's-
So then he's got to okay, so then so then so the plan is he's going to come home, he'll live with you, you'll feed him and take care of him, make his bed and do his washing, yeah?
Well,
Probably.
well, just for short term. And he's
What?
Just for a short term,
Well, who said short term?
A month.
a month or two.
So you said, I'll give you a month.
Yeah,
And what's the consequence you want him to show that he's achieved before you throw him out?
I'm not throwing him out, but
No, I mean, you will have to at the end.
although
You've
it's
got-
kind of nice just being the two of us, you know.
What?
It was kind of nice being just the two of us. you
I know,
know.
but so just the conclusion. So what's your goal?
Well, our goal is to get him the help he needs.
And then, once you've done that and paid for it and get him to educate, what's the proof of, but what I'm getting at is, you say 1 month or two, so what what outcome do you want by the end of that period, before you say, you better go now?
That he's learned how to address.
And if he doesn't, what will you say to him?
Well.
You've got to go now,
That's a good
get a
question.
job.
I don't know, I don't know the answer to that.
What do you think? I mean, you're not gonna let him just stay there forever, because he's 19, he's a big
No.
boy now.
No, but.
But have you not got a strategy for that one?
No, I don't.
Therefore, you haven't got a clear set of outcomes for him. You've got to have a very clear set of outcomes, so he knows the consequence when he doesn't fulfill it. You have to, don't you? Don't you think so? You're the mum, right?
Yeah,
Do you know, I mean, he needs a serious plan, and he's got to get a wake-up call. Is this not true? If he's a bright boy,
he is right.
so you've got to give him a very clear plan. That means, how many hours a day does he do video games? I mean, what, 6, 7, 8, 9, probably, all his waking time.
Probably.
Yes.
So you've got to be much more strict. You're being too pathetic. You're being so relieved he's come home, you're all excited. Jesus God. You've got to have a clear, laid out plan. This is, if you want to come home, honey child, but with kindness, we'll pay for it, we'll do this, but the outcome has to be in 1 month, 2, you got to decide, you means you're only going to have no more than 3 hours a day video, you've got to get up early, you've got to do the dishes, you've got to do this. Excuse me, you haven't got a plan at all. You're just following attachment, in my opinion.
Well,
Do you agree with me? Or you think he's going to let it all be?
He's gonna continue going to college online.
Excuse me, bullshit. He's saying that because he's desperate. He doesn't know what to do, so he's coming home to mummy and daddy. Otherwise, why would he come home? Staying, of course he can do, but you've got to give him an outlet, you've got to give him a serious plan, surely, and give him some courage. And you have to meet your plan, otherwise you're just going to let him sink into misery and be pathetic after one day. Attachment's very strong.
I know,
You both are really very shocking me. Do you not agree with my point?
I agree.
No, you mother. What do you think what do you not think I'm saying something intelligent?
No, I do, I'm just,
What? Say it, what? What?
I don't know what to say.
Well, then I think you better get a plan. I mean, do you not, seriously? He's a junkie, basically, except it's not heroin, that's all, and it's not alcohol. But that's a junkie behavior, which is strong, incredible laziness. I'm not being rude about him. We're all the same. And craving for comfort, craving for the comfort zone, unable to push past his comfort zone, zero discipline, giving into his senses like a 4-year-old. Join the universe. Some people never live their lives any other way. They die at 90 like this. So you've got to give a serious plan. We are wanting to help you, but this is the conditions. And you give them the opportunity. Surely, I'm shocked completely that you haven't got a plan. Are we communicating here or not? You look really puzzled, like it's a surprise and a shock what I'm saying.
No, you're saying it right.
You, sweetheart.
I'm sorry, I don't have anything to say.
But do you hear what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying.
And may I suggest that you go home and talk about it before he comes? When's he coming? Or is he here already?
Yeah, Wednesday.
What?
Wednesday.
Well, you've got 2 days to think about it. Otherwise, what? He's going to move into his bedroom. Before you know it, he's got the same. Why do you think magically he's going to be different just because he's coming home? Why do you think that?
He finally admitted that he needs help and he doesn't know how to do it.
He's got to give up video games and have a discipline. That's how you do it. You don't need a bloody expert to tell him that. You, both as human beings, will tell him the answer. Have a discipline. Up early. Get out of bed. Clean yourself. Do your room. Go here. Do that. 3 hours a day videos max. That's how you do it.
We did tell him some of that.
I beg your pardon?
We did tell him.
Well,
some of that.
excuse me. That is all of it.
Yeah.
There's no magic. It's not magic. You just got to see his life as a disaster because he's following attachment. Excuse me. Does he get angry? Does he have panic attacks? What happens? Does he have girlfriends, boyfriends, dog friends?
He's had lots of girlfriends.
What?
Lots of.
So he likes his sex as well.
I don't know.
God almighty, you people. I mean, you're the ones I'm talking to here, not about your son, I'm talking about you two. Oh, excuse me, I better stop.
No.
Are parents in this room are hearing what I'm saying?
Yes.
Or fellow video addicts? Any advice, John? You can tell them now, please. Excuse me, John, confess.
Well, I'm 53. It can go from 19 to 53 if you don't really try hard. So,
And he's only just giving his up habit now, and he's got a job. He managed to keep a job, but just his head above water, and he's fucking 53. Excuse me, it's a junkie mind he's got. It's just not alcohol and heroin. That's all.
It's very addict behavior.
Pardon?
It's very addict-like behavior.
Of course, what do you mean? It's like a surprise to you. It is being an addict. John, how many years have you been doing? 25 years, right? How long have you been doing this junkie habit? 30 years.
yeah,
5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours a day. Managing to keep his head above water, and then he has panic attacks because he can't keep. Luckily, they've been sacked 20 years ago, fired, and now you're beginning to manage it.
Yeah.
How many hours a day now?
2.
There you go. 53 years old, and he's got a job. So you're not seeing the problem at all. If it were alcohol or drugs, you'd think he had a problem. It's exactly the same, but you don't see the evidence of it because you can't see it physically. You've got to hear my words. Do you hear me, sweetheart?
Yeah, I hear you, I'm just processing.
Good, I'm happy you're processing. But if you want to, he wants help, he's needy, he's showing he wants it. So you meet him with a serious plan, with loving kindness, but very, very firm. You want this, we give it to you, but you need to do this. It's a serious, and you can say you met a person who's 53 and it takes 25, 30 years to get over it. But the world doesn't realize it. It's just the same as being a junkie. Sex or drugs and alcohol see the result, but you can't see the result on a body with this one. Do you understand me? And you sit at your computer like everybody does.
Yes.
It's serious attachment. I mean, we've all got attachment. We're all junkies. It's a question of degree, that's all. So you meet him with this, but give him a serious plan. And it'll be an immense struggle. I mean, the number of conversations, you can't imagine how I've spoken to him. You can imagine, probably.
Oh,
Are we communicating?
Yes.
Thank you. I think it's time to go. All right, people, we're all junkies. It's a question of degree. If it's not attachment, it's comfort, our comfort zone, having everything lovely, food, sex, drugs, rock and roll, video games, phones, you name it. It's the world now. It's just how we are, you know, it's just got more things to be attached to. Attachment, the Buddha says, is effectively the main cause of suffering. We'll see it. But really the biggest one is you can't see it physically. Does he have panic attacks? Does he get angry?
Rarely.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, okay.
Only when I call him out, I'm not doing his schoolwork.
What?
Only when I call him out for not doing his schoolwork. Then he yells.
And then what would he do? How would he respond?
He yells at me.
He yells at you, he gets angry, then okay. Well, it's an opportunity for you to help him, but you got to really be there helping him strongly. So he can judge his progress. Otherwise, he'll just sink into the same misery. You don't need a bloody expert to show him how to study. It means he's got to stop following his attachment. That's how you study. You'll be disciplined. Do you hear me? That's the point.
Yes.
But if you don't do it yourselves, you don't know it yourselves, we all just follow our attachment. Mostly we're just junkies, but we're just food, sleep, comfort, television. Most of us just live in a comfort zone. You understand? It's not like severe. We just think it's normal life. It's just gross attachment. And that's why we're miserable. So we're never satisfied.
I think that's true.
You understand? That's why we get fat. Then we start starving ourselves, then we get thin, then we go on Ozempic, like Oprah. I remember Oprah said, I was so shocked, I thought she was aware. She said, it's our brain, it's not our fault, she said. I could not believe it. I was blown out, she said. Giving up attachment is not easy, people. Are we communicating?
Thank you so much.
Every day, every second, discipline.
Thank you.
But praise him, love him, tell him he's intelligent, but it's clear he's never done. That's why he just lives there and doesn't know how. So you help him. That's a big job you're taking on, I tell you. You would have a deadline too as well. Otherwise you'd be sunk with this 90-year-old boy till he's 53. God almighty, with no job. He's got a job. Jesus, fuck. Okay, good night, everybody. Goodbye. Jang Chub Sem Chog, sing a prayer now. Jang Chub Sem Chog, Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam, Ke Gu Chig, Ke Panyam Pa, Me Panyang Gong Ne, Gong Du, Herba Shog. There's Navita. I'm sorry, Navita. She's from Delhi. She's a nice Indian girl. Are you been shocked, Navita? Oh, unmute me, Navita, and answer my question.
Sorry, what was your question, Venerable?
Are you shocked by my rude language?
No, I appreciate
Be
it.
honest.
I appreciate it.
What?
I appreciate the directness.
But I can't talk like this in Delhi, can I?
I think not.
I won't. I promise. Okay, no. That's enough. Goodbye. Go home now. Goodbye.